The Final Four is here. We will preview the men's and women's action. Also, Dalen Cuff, Ben Fawkes join us. Plus, the Lakers get thumped in an absolute nightmare game. Luka's health and more with Tom Haberstroh. And plenty to break down. Is it possible that Curry is returning? We've got all that and more. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz at Yahoo Sports Daily. For the next 2 hours, we're rack stacked and packed with tons to get to, including previews of the tournament, men's and women's. We've got tons of guests coming in. Caroline, it is a huge show, but we start with some big news from yesterday in the NFL in the form of Kirk Cousins signing to be the starter in Vegas. This is where I take my little victory lap and say, if you watch Yahoo Sports Daily all the time, you'd have heard this, I don't know, about a month ago. Kirk Cousins going to Vegas. Caroline, I've had a lot of time to think about this. And for me, the more I think about it, the more I think the Raiders are finally doing things the competent way. They get themselves an insurance policy at quarterback, yes. But most importantly, they bring in a veteran that can help show the ropes. They can help teach Fernando Mendoza what he needs to know. And also can play the position while they have the opportunity to bring Fernando along slowly. I think this is a home run, wildly common sense move by the Raiders.
It seemed so obvious all along that this was the pairing that the Raiders needed to make possible, and they did. I have to give the Raiders so much credit. I will always say an organization's number one priority when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal is create as healthy of an ecosystem as possible for that young quarterback. Because that doesn't just benefit him, that benefits you and your franchise for the long run. So what does that mean? It means give him mentors around him, whether that's players, coaches, people in the front office to, watch and learn and observe and watch film with and be able to bounce questions off of. When you look at Fernando Mendoza, let's just go ahead and make the assumption. We can do that, right? Fernando Mendoza is a Raider. Great. Okay, wonderful. Fernando Mendoza's circle of trust in Vegas is going to be Kirk Cousins, a guy who has played a lot of football and has seen a lot of football at the highest level. It's going to be Tyler Linderbaum at the center position. I don't want to forget him in this situation when we talk about the Raiders and what they did this past offseason. I think bringing in a veteran center, one of the best centers, if not the best center in the National Football League for a young quarterback, brilliant move, smart move by the Raiders. They invested in Tyler Linderbaum, but I thought it was a very smart investment. So he's got Kirk Cousins, Tyler Linderbaum, Clint Kubiak. I don't know what Clint Kubiak is going to be like as a head coach. I know he's a really smart offensive mind, though. So Fernando Mendoza has him as his offensive play caller and head coach. And, oh yeah, by the way, the greatest guy to ever play the position in the history of football in Tom Brady. So Fernando Mendoza has such a strong supporting cast around him, has such an insightful and experienced circle of trust. I have to give the Raiders so much credit for doing what a lot of teams in the NFL haven't or aren't willing to do, and that is give your young quarterback what he needs around him and also time and patience.
This is why, let me pull up my soapbox here. One thing I've said repeatedly is when you draft a quarterback first overall, I'm not just talking about the Raiders, a team that, full transparency, most of you know watching, I'm a fan of. I'm talking the same message that I gave the Titans last year when they drafted Cam Ward and everybody else that's drafted a quarterback first overall. When you draft a quarterback with the top pick in the draft, winning is no longer the most important thing. The most important thing is that everybody in that building speak the love language of that quarterback. Whatever that quarterback needs to succeed is what you have to give him, because ultimately hired and fired for everybody in that building isn't going to rely just on winning games. It's going to rely on the development of that quarterback. Now we're all, conceding that Fernando Mendoza is going to be the first overall pick in the draft. So with that being said, then the question becomes in every possible way, how does this help Fernando? To your point, Tyler Linderbaum takes things off of the plate of Fernando. He is such an accomplished and wildly successful center that he can come in and just take some of those calls off a young quarterback's plate. Now, on top of all of that, then you look at Kirk and say, well, how does Kirk help? Kirk helps because it takes the pressure off. It takes the need to play him right away off the plate. That's why I believe Kirk Cousins is going to be the starter for the majority of this season, because now this is very much like Patrick Mahomes, only in the sense of, I always go back to this one example. Mahomes himself has said in interviews after his success that a big credit to that he gives to Alex Smith, who was the quarterback Mahomes' rookie year. And while everyone knew that Mahomes was tearing it up in practice within Kansas City, what Mahomes talked about is Alex Smith was the one that taught him, how to structure your week, what's the right time to break down which film, how you're supposed to ask for what you're supposed to eat in different days. Like everything that he credited Alex Smith with is now going to be sort of this moment for me, Kirk Cousins with Fernando Mendoza. Kirk is the type of person that, while a fierce competitor, can and I think will be a mentor. He's also the type of person that creates a bit of a culture to how to handle your quarterback room. He's somebody that's been at a lot of organizations. He's somebody that understands pressure. He's somebody that understands how to deal with it. He's also somebody that's more than fully capable of handling the temptations of Sin City, right? Like, you look across the board, I don't think you could have found a better Alex Smith for Patrick Mahomes. I don't think you could have found a better Kirk Cousins in this instance for Fernando Mendoza. And does it mean Fernando's going to be spectacular? Who knows? Time will tell. But now time can tell. Now we get the opportunity. That's why, Caroline, I fully believe also John Spytek, the GM of the Raiders, has been wildly honest with people. A couple of years ago, going into the draft, he said, we're not going to draft for need. We're going to take the player we think makes the best difference for our roster. Everybody thought he was joshing people. Then they took Brock Powers. Last year, he was asked about, can you draft a running back that high? And he said, I don't think it's that simple. You need great players. They drafted a running back. Spytek and Clint Kubiak have both repeatedly said, I don't want a young quarterback that has to start day one. Like, there's transparent honesty here that we're trying to make complicated. I think the regime has told you that their expectation is this year is about the growth behind the scenes for Fernando. And that's okay, because the Fernando Mendoza isn't going to be judged by what he accomplishes in the first 12 months with the Raiders. If things go right the first 12 months, you hope that you've got your guy for the next 15 years. And that's why I think Kirk behind center makes a ton of sense, while Mendoza slowly comes along. And if and when he's ready, whether that's week 1, week 10, or not at all this season, that's okay, because he doesn't have to be ready. He just has to get better every day.
And I think there's so much value in a young quarterback getting to sit and learn. You bring up Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith. That's a wonderful example. Now, would Patrick Mahomes not have become the Patrick Mahomes that we know now if he started right away? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but what I do know is what you just said, that Patrick Mahomes has credited both Andy Reid and Alex Smith a lot for his development in the National Football League. Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre. And also, I think the most obvious one that's very important to point out when we approach this quarterback duo is Tom Brady. Tom Brady sat behind Drew Bledsoe in New England. And Tom Brady really only came in because Drew Bledsoe got hurt. And Tom Brady has said, whether he was a player or after he retired or now as a partial owner of the Raiders, he's talked a lot about quarterback development and how a lot of teams, whether it's college or the NFL levels, are doing it wrong. So I think it's important to remember that they have somebody in the room that they should trust wholeheartedly with the development of quarterbacks. And I have to imagine that's going to be Tom Brady's approach, is slow cooking Fernando Mendoza and not putting too much on his plate before he's ready. Because how many young quarterbacks have we seen get absolutely ruined by bad organizations that rush them along, that throw them into the fire and destroy their confidence? We saw it in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson will end up being one of the greatest what ifs in modern NFL, in my opinion, just because Anthony Richardson had all of the talent, but it was so raw and Indianapolis wasn't willing to wait. But even with that being said, Fitzy, I still think Fernando Mendoza will start more games than Kirk Cousins this season. They're not going to rush him. And look, if Fernando Mendoza is just straight up not ready, then I'm happy to walk that back. But one reason why I've heard a lot of people think that Kirk Cousins is going to be the starter this year, the hands down starter this year, is the money. When you look at the Kirk Cousins contract just on the surface, 5 years, $172 million. What? That's not what it is. That's so much funny money. It really is, a 1 year, $10 million deal. A 1 year, $10 million deal with an extra $10 million of guarantees. But remember, the Falcons are on the hook for Kirk Cousins' salary. Anything the Raiders don't pay, the Falcons do. The Raiders are only paying $1.3 million of Kirk Cousins' $10 million guaranteed this season. The Raiders are paying him $1.3 million. The Falcons, you can see right there, 8.7 this year, and then in 2027, all of that is converted into a roster bonus. So, I mean, like, really, essentially, the Raiders are only paying $11.3 million for Kirk Cousins. That's chump change. Like, that's less than a rookie quarterback deal. So, what this year looks like for Kirk Cousins, let's not forget, we haven't seen great Kirk Cousins the last couple of years. So, I don't think that we can expect Kirk Cousins to go out there and just light the world on fire. At some point, if Kirk Cousins looks bad enough, if the Raiders lose enough games, there's going to be people that get impatient and want to see Fernando Mendoza. And let's not act like that pressure doesn't get to an owner at some point, especially an owner like Mark Davis that we know listens to the fans, listens to radio, reads the articles, sees social media. So I still think that Fernando Mendoza is going to start more games than Kirk Cousins. And the Raiders, I think, made a really smart move in not giving up the farm and not paying Kirk Cousins a boatload of money and backing themselves into a corner financially.
Kirk Cousins' contract, as you mentioned, is being called so creative right now that there's curiosity amongst some of the league about whether or not they are going to actually try and close the loophole that Kirk Cousins just created to make sure that he gets paid by the Falcons and paid by the Raiders. So a brilliant job by Kirk's agent. He continues to be A+ at everything business. Also, several reports yesterday was, even though this news came out yesterday, is that they've been talking for quite a while. And I think this might have been on Kirk's mind for quite a while. In fact, if you go all the way back to Radio Row at the Super Bowl, our very own Caroline Fenton asked Kirk Cousins about Fernando Mendoza. Check a little of this answer out.
Heard a lot of comparisons between
you and
him.
I've
You've
heard
heard those
of that too.
comparisons?
Yeah, my wife told me that there's a lot out there about how we're similar look, similar style plays, similar vibe. So
do you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see the look. I can see the style play. Certainly, he seems like a cerebral guy and pretty analytical. And certainly, I think of myself in that same vein. So I didn't get to go number 1 overall, which he probably will. So that's where the differences start to show up.
What would be some words of wisdom or advice that you would pay to Fernando Mendoza?
I'd give the advice that Mike Shanahan gave me when I was early in my career. Tough times don't last, tough people do. You just got to stay the course, keep playing, play through the challenges. Just get back on the horse every day no matter what happens.
The more I hear that, the more I just think flexibility. Guys, like, this is the biggest thing. Smart. I realize it, and look, the Raiders don't deserve any benefit of the doubt. They don't. But one thing that I consistently say, Caroline, is that the failings of an organization are at some point, even though we as fans live it for generations, at some point there are new people in the building. And your only hope for an actual rebuild is that the new people in the building aren't going to make the same mistakes that the old ones did, right? And I just look at all of this, whether it's, to your point, whether it's Brady saying, hey, teams screw up development of quarterbacks. I don't think that messaging is accidental. Then Clint Kubiak comes out and says, well, I don't want a young quarterback to have to start day one. I don't think that messaging is accidental. Then you hear what Kirk Cousins has to say just about the message of toughness and about resilience and all of these things. And I don't think any of this is accidental. I think right now what's happening in Las Vegas is very intentional. There's a very intentional understanding that they have absolutely fallen apart as a franchise. Spytek even admitted, their GM, after the season, that they were farther behind as a roster than I think a lot of people realized, and that frankly it was going to be a rebuild, a long rebuild. Now that you've got people admitting how bad it's gotten, hopefully these fixes can actually work. But Caroline, when I hear Kirk talk there and I just think about what all this means for Fernando Mendoza, all you can do is try and give a young quarterback every opportunity to succeed. I think giving yourself the flexibility to not have to throw him on the field, giving him a mentor that can help him adjust to the life and adjust to sort of the pressures that come along with the mentoring of Brady. Like, this is, I think, the most competent I've felt about the Raiders in a very long time.
You should. As somebody who loves the Raiders, as somebody who's been a lifelong Raider fan, I think that you should be really excited about what this team is doing. You can see all of the pieces starting to fit together. And to your point, the messaging is matching their actions. And that's really refreshing, I think, as a fan, whenever you hear so much coach speak, whenever you can hear so much, sunshine and rainbows laden rhetoric coming out of football buildings. And then you're seeing some moves that don't necessarily match that. It's confusing as a fan of what should I expect? Should I be excited about my team? Are we gonna win? I'm not quite sure. The Raiders have been very upfront and honest about what their process is. The Raiders aren't selling like we were talking about yesterday about Aaron Glenn selling that Geno Smith is going to get Jets fans to the promised land. We all hear that and roll our eyes because we know it's not true. And sure, you can't just always sell a really harsh dose of reality to fan bases, but I do think a little bit of a dose of reality is necessary. And the Raiders are doing that and acknowledging that, look, this isn't going to be an overnight fix, but we're going to put all of the pieces in place to make sure that although it's not overnight, it's going to be worth the wait. And you heard Kirk Cousins there talking about the comparisons between their personality and their demeanor. They even do kind of look alike. That's an obvious comparison to make, and they're both two precious personalities and two just very, very kind-hearted, mild-mannered people. You're gonna see that comparison made a lot. That's why I think it's important for Fernando Mendoza, is to see someone like Kirk Cousins that has a very similar personality to him. Just like a sweet personality, good-natured personality. To watch Kirk Cousins and the way that he can command an NFL locker room. To understand that you can be the kind of quarterback like Kirk Cousins that doesn't cuss and says, oh boy, whenever he sees a pass rush, caving in on the offensive line. Whenever you see a guy who says, frick, you see a guy who's just very innocent, when you see the way that he's able to wrangle a 54-man roster, when you see the way that he's able to galvanize and inspire a locker room, Fernando Mendoza is going to be able to learn not just on the field from Kirk Cousins, but also how to be a leader and a galvanizer in the locker room off the field. And we can't underestimate the importance of that for a franchise quarterback.
I'm still laughing at the thought of Max Crosby's personality walking into that quarterback room. Also laughing at Doug's going to have plenty of Photoshops for us of all sorts of buddy cop stepbrothers. We're going to have every movie known to man for this quarterback room in Vegas. It's going to be a fun year. All right, it's going to be a fun weekend for the women and men in the NCAA tournament. We'll preview the women's Final Four coming up next. What can we expect from those two icons?
What are some things about the Detroit Pistons that we on the outside might not know?
The culture, when I walked into this, the culture for me was pretty impressive. The way the players kind of come to bat for each other. And, Isaiah Stewart is not a guy off the court that is like an angry human being. In that Charlotte game, it was all he was saying in the locker room was like, I'm going to have you guys back. That's what I do. For me, it's impressive to see just how together everyone is and, the culture that they've continued to build.
I have Sadiq at the top like you. That's not the surprise. Sam Roush from Stanford, who had the big combine, unlike a lot of college tight ends that are productive, he actually, in my opinion, is playing the position like a pro right now. I love how he rumbles after the catch. I like Sam Roush quite a bit, Nate, because I just love that I could put him on the line of scrimmage, and I think he's tough as hell.
If you're a team that needs a left tackle, would you be concerned that this seemingly is a right tackle draft?
Concerned, no, because you got to have a plan for it. And this is where your area scouts and the forecasting of what's coming out in the draft is important, and understanding that. I want to go back to CeCe Mauanoa that you talked about. I think his overall stock is up for me because I'm feeling like now, if you have CeCe Mauanoa on your team, now he gives you the ability to put your best five on the field, whether he's your right tackle or he's your guard.
See the snap.
Jerome to throw, and that's caught. Damon Street goes up and gets it, and it'll be first and goal for New Mexico.
Damon Street's having a day.
First and goal. Johnson on the keeper, and he'll throw it up, and Jefferson's got it. Touchdown, New Mexico. How do you like that?
The Wade Trophy goes out to the 2026 Player of the Year. That would be Sarah Strong, named the winner of it from University of Connecticut, recognizing her as the best player of women's college basketball this year. Congratulations to Sarah. But the job isn't finished. She picked up the individual accolade, and this weekend she has the chance to pick up the team accolade at the women's Final Four. So we'll break it all down now, Caroline. What can South Carolina do at this point to pull off the upset in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think if South Carolina wins this game, if South Carolina slays the dragon that is UConn and does something no other team all season long has done, and that's beat UConn, it'll be because South Carolina's depth is just more versatile. South Carolina's depth is just deeper than that of UConn. And we've seen that really on full display throughout the tournament. Like, it's not crazy to think that South Carolina could out-depth UConn, a team that is also incredibly deep. But we saw a freshman and Agat McCure come off the bench and put up 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists against TCU in the Elite Eight. A freshman. And frankly, I think Agat McCure is not a household name. Like, just a name that really only women's basketball hardos would recognize. You have a player in Medina Okot who is good for double-digit rebounds on any given night. You have a player in Panaya Latson who can put up 20 to 30 points. She was the NCAA's leading scorer last season. And then you have Joyce Edwards and you have Tessa Johnson. We call her Tournament Tessa for a reason. And Raven Johnson has been to the Final Four in all 5 of her years at South Carolina. Like, there's a South Carolina core that's seen a lot of high-level basketball, has seen a lot of Final Fours and a lot of national championships together. You know, the list goes on and on and on of players that you can turn to and rely on at South Carolina. Feels like any given night it could be a different leading scorer. So that's South Carolina's path, I think, is out-depthing UConn. And also, if UConn gets off to a slow start, which we've seen UConn get off to a slow start in the last couple of games, then the Sweet 16 in the Elite Eight, UConn was not playing its highest level of basketball, at least in the first halves. They got off to a little bit of an iffy start against North Carolina. They got off to an iffy start against Notre Dame. You saw it on Sarah Strong's face. Like, she was getting into it with her teammates on the sidelines. She was shaking her head because she was so disappointed. And of course, they were able to win those games and win those games by massive margins. When we're talking about the standard of perfection with UConn, it's really easy to nitpick anything and everything. I wholeheartedly understand that. But South Carolina is a much better team and is going to be a much more competitive team than North Carolina and Notre Dame were. So if UConn doesn't get out to a fast start, South Carolina will be able to dig them into a deep enough hole that they might not be able to get out of.
Yeah, I think, we say this often in tournament games, but the first 10 minutes, the first 5 minutes of this game feel particularly important to me because two sides of it.
Totally.
Raven Johnson talked in an ESPN.com article. I thought that was really sort of jarring to hear her talk about it. Walking into the South Carolina weight room this offseason where the score was up all over the walls of the 2025 National Championship game loss that they suffered to UConn. They have been staring at that score, 82-59, for the better part of a year, waiting for this opportunity. I think you're going to get, I always say, thunder of the gods. You are going to get thunder of the gods energy from South Carolina because this is personal, and it has to be personal. And this is something that every single player that was part of getting their ass kicked last year is coming back wanting that opportunity to make their own statement. So that being said, I think you get that Rocky-like moment where they're going to come out swinging and they're going to try and land some punches. If UConn isn't ready for that, or to your point, if UConn's starting slow, belief is a drug, right? So South Carolina gets it, it's fine. But the flip side of this is also true. If UConn comes out fired, if UConn comes out and is able to jump out to a quick double-digit lead, I wonder what the fight back looks like from South Carolina. This isn't about Dawn Staley. We all know how great she is, how legendary she is. And I know she's going to have her team motivated. But I think the first 5 minutes of this game either gives belief or it completely wipes it away in this one. And that's what's really going to be interesting because if UConn is able to hop out to a quick early lead, this turns into a blowout. If UConn isn't, then the longer that South Carolina stays in this thing, the more you have to wonder if just that personal edge. Like, you cannot give. It is impossible to give UConn the same edge in this game that South Carolina is going to feel because UConn hasn't spent the last year remembering this loss. So I think there is an opportunity for an emotional edge for South Carolina, and I love your comment on the depth. I also think UConn's just a better basketball team. So it's hard for me because I can find the path to a close game, Caroline. I just don't know that that's what we're going to get. I think we have a better shot at a close game in the other matchup that we're going to get in the Final Four.
And I don't know. I don't know if UConn is just a better basketball team because it's hard to compare the entirety of the seasons that we've seen from both of these two teams. Look, UConn hasn't lost a game, but UConn also plays in the Big East. And I know that drives UConn fans crazy whenever you bring up the strength of schedule, but it's a reality of this team. They have not been overly tested in the regular season. South Carolina has. The SEC is the deepest and most competitive conference in women's college basketball. So it's a little bit difficult to compare. UConn has the better player. Sarah Strong is the best player in the country, and there's no debate about that. You mentioned how she won Naismith Player of the Year. Love Hannah Hidalgo, and I love Michaela Blakes. It really shouldn't have ever been a discussion or a debate. Sarah Strong is the best player in the country. But if UConn wins, and if UConn wins big especially, it will be because of what Sarah Strong is able to do. They haven't been able to get her the basketball early in their last two matchups. If UConn wants to keep this as comfortable as a lead as it was in the national championship game last year, Sarah Strong needs the ball early, and Sarah Strong needs the ball often. But I just love the fact that we get this matchup, this Dawn Staley, Gino Auriemma matchup again in a big time game that matters. This is like the modern day UConn Tennessee. This is the, Gino Auriemma and Dawn Staley is the modern day Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma. This is the elite rivalry in women's college basketball, and I love that we get it with a trip to the national championship on the line for one team that's trying to defend a title and another team that's trying to get back there.
All right, so then the other matchup, Texas UCLA, looks, to use your favorite word, juicy. All right, what do you got in this one?
Very juicy. Oh, I love this matchup. I think that South Carolina UConn definitely has more brand recognition. That's going to be the more premier matchup of the day. But don't get this one twisted, because both of these two teams are playing with a certain level of pressure, I think. Let's look at the UCLA side of things. Lauren Betts is a senior. Kiki Rice is a senior. Gabby Hawkes is a senior. Angela Dukelich is a senior. You're catching my drift here, right? There's a theme going on with UCLA. If Corey Close and UCLA don't win a national championship this year, I don't know when they will. Now, of course, you have the transfer portal. You can microwave success much easier in today's college sports than you used to. But this is UCLA's best chance at winning a national championship. And you look at Texas, Vic Schaefer has never won one. Look, Vic Schaefer was in the Final Four last year. Vic Schaefer took Mississippi State to 2 Final Fours, but he's never been able to break through and win one. Rory Harmon is his 5th-year senior. And Vic Schaefer has been very open and honest about how much he adores and loves Rory Harmon. He talks about how how she is his brain out there living, breathing, and running around on the court. He says that Rory Harmon is one of his favorite players that he has ever coached. This is her last opportunity to win a national championship at Texas. Now, while you still have Madison Booker, and while you still have so many pieces of this Texas team potentially returning next year, it feels like this is the best opportunity for both of these two teams. Vic Schaefer said this is the best offensive team he's ever had. It's the best opportunity for both of these teams to win a national championship. They can't both do it. So that's the interesting storyline going into this one. For Texas, it's defense, 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 defense. This team runs through their defense. Kyla Oldacre, 6'6", off the bench. She can score at an incredibly high clip. She is the best matchup for Lauren Betts, just size-wise in the paint. If she is able to win that battle, that's how Texas takes down UCLA.
Look, the brands in the first matchup are the brands. The basketball in the second matchup is going to be absolute. This is my flip a coin game. I could go either way. We do have some big news in women's college basketball I want to get to. The transfer portal hitting women's college basketball. We're used to this all over the place, but one of the stars, Audi Crooks, is going to enter the transfer portal. Obviously, at Iowa State, she took the whole nation by storm. Everybody fell in love. Is there a spot here, Caroline, that you think makes sense for Crooks?
Yeah, UCLA makes sense just because I just mentioned all of those players that they're going to be losing, that I think Corey Close is going to want to supplement their roster next season with one of the biggest names in the transfer portal. That might not be the most attractive place for Audi Crooks, though, however, because she's leaving a team that she had to carry. Probably because she doesn't feel like carrying a team anymore. She transfers to UCLA, then who is going to help her out and not have to carry the team? That's the question there. I think TCU is a fascinating landing spot for her. A little juicy with it being in the Big 12. But TCU has quickly become transfer portal university. We saw Haley Van Lith have a career renaissance at TCU. We're seeing Olivia Miles be a breakout star after transferring from Notre Dame to TCU. I think that could be a really great fit for Audi Crooks. I would also look at Texas potentially. I think Audi Crooks scores the three, is way too good at 3-point shooting to kind of fit Vic Schaefer's system that doesn't really shoot a lot of threes. But if Vic gives her a long enough leash to shoot the three, I think his defensive mind would be a really good pairing with Audi Crooks. Is just, just her skill set.
I am enamored with the concept of TCU. TCU seems to be the spot where it's like, hey, we'll take your transfers and we'll take those superstars and we'll continue to ride that wave all the way through. All right, from the women's side to the men's side, coming up next, we will break down everything you need to know for this weekend's Final Four with Dalen Cuff coming up.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flagg, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level. Shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
There you see the men's national championship odds according to BetMGM. Michigan, the shortest odds at plus 165. UConn getting the most disrespect, at least in the eyes of Hurley, at plus 575. This is all packed in pretty close. For more on that and the entire tournament we're going to see over the weekend, we welcome in our good friend, college hoops expert, Dalen Cuff. Dalen, also, a little dabbler in the gambling markets as well. So is there, for any viewers out there who want in on the action, already have the brackets busted, what team, you saw the odds there, what team's worth putting their money on now at those odds?
Honestly, you can make a case for all four teams. I think from the odds standpoint, I would lead toward Arizona. I think Arizona's going to win it anyway. So if you give me a little bit more value at plus 185, that would be my play. I actually think the most interesting play in the Final Four is Illinois on the money line, or if you want to lay the 1.5. UConn is the underdog in this game, and the public is hammering the Huskies. It's no surprise. They know the team. They've won 2 of the last 3 national championships. They know Dan Hurley. That's what the public is betting them. They all watch the Duke game. That said, these teams met in December. Illinois lost. So all the things for people that are public and casual bettors say, UConn, you're giving me a 1.5, I'll take UConn. Well, the money's closer to even. That means the big money, the whales, the sharks are more on Illinois. I'm on Illinois. I think that's the play. I think they avenged that December loss in an impressive fashion. So if you're looking for some wagers, that's where I would go.
Okay, Dalen, let's play a little game. We'll go team by team in the Final Four. I want you to whip out your crystal ball. I want you to close your eyes and imagine UConn is cutting down the nets in Indianapolis. What did they have to do to get there?
It's a great question. So for UConn, everything that starts with them on the defensive end, they have to defend at an elite level. And when they played Illinois in December, they were defending at an elite level. They made them struggle to run their offense. So I think that's where their core is. And when they've been not very good, they've been inconsistent the last 5 weeks. They didn't even play a great game, and they beat Duke. But they have to start on the defensive end. They have to be consistent. They have to limit Illinois' threes, to limit Illinois' points to the paint. Cannot foul, cannot put them on the line. Another side of things, that man you're seeing on your screen, Terrace Reed, has to be huge. And offensively, it's simple analysis sometimes, Caroline. They got to make shots. They run great offense. They get good looks, but their offensive ceiling, they've not hit it. And I don't know why. Solo Ball led the Big East in three-point shooting last year. This year, he's below 30%. He's got to make shots in these games. Alex Caravan can't start the game the way he did the other day. He needs to play the way he finished the game the other day with a huge 3. He needs to make shots. That guy, Braylon Mullins, has to make shots. They're going to get good looks. You got to make their three-pointers. They have to play off the bounce, get feet in the paint, spray it at times for open threes, and Terrace Reed has to be a monster. So their offensive efficiency has to be better, and they have to hang their hat on the defensive end, which is when they're at their best. That's when the Huskies can do damage.
Yeah, look, I missed on Illinois, Dalen. I didn't have them getting this far. So what do they have to do to win a national championship?
They have to be the team they are. That's why I like them in this matchup. I don't think they have to do anything that we haven't seen them do in recent weeks and months. They are an elite offensive team, the best in the country, top 3 in the nation in offensive rebounding rate. They are the biggest team, so they have positional size. So they have to be able to accept that physical challenge that UConn showed them in December. They weren't quite there, as I mentioned. Keaton Wagler, who now is one of the top 5 guards in the country, wasn't quite there, the young freshman. He's a big 6'6" guard that can pick teams apart, make threes. They need to play their game. They need to be able to attack offensively, to space out UConn. They have to make their shots. When they get in the paint, ball fakes, get guys themselves to the free throw line. They've crushed teams on the free throw line as well. And then defensively, use that positional size to their advantage. That's where sometimes we've thought this team can be taken advantage of. Their defense has been much improved in recent games. I think Kylan Boswell setting that tempo as the lead guard, taking on Silas Demery most times, set the tempo for them defensively, make it very hard for UConn to score. Use that length to contest those shots, as I was talking about. Make sure you get good contests on shots, limit them to one, and get going the other way. I think Illinois needs to play their game, and that will be enough. I think UConn has to play one of their best games. That's why I like Illinois in this game.
All right, let's go over to the other game then. Arizona, what's going to take for them to win a title?
I love this matchup because it's a mirror image of each other. It is the Spider-Man meme. It's you look at, they've got positional size in the bigs too. Big 4 and 5 for Arizona. So does obviously Michigan. They've got good guard play. They've got good wing play. They've got All-Americans on their roster. I think the big difference for Arizona may end up being Jaden Bradley. This guy is the best closer in the business. From the beginning of the season, when they need a big play made, he's done it. Now, Braden Burries is the highest lottery pick for this team. Mo Krivas will be in the NBA. Will Bradley? I don't know, but I know he's an outstanding college basketball player. And I do think Ellie Cadeau obviously had the hospitalization situation the other day with an allergic reaction. He's fine from all reports and people that saw him yesterday at the facility. But I do think that matchup, Jaden Bradley's the guy, the better, more consistent lead guard. And it is trite but true. Guards win in March. And I think that he's going to have an outstanding game. They have to play their game. They have to defend an elite level, keep Michigan off the glass. They need to get going out the other way. But both these teams can play in transition. They can play in a half-court game. They don't take a bunch of shots, the Wildcats, in terms of threes, but they shoot a good percentage. They take good ones. They both have great depth. So I think them playing each other's game is going to be interesting because I think that'll be the mirror image, as I mentioned. But execution, it's going to come down to those final plays, those final moments. And those things aren't just in the last 2 or 3 possessions. They build through the course of the game. They need to out-execute Michigan through the course of the game to put them in position to win in those final possessions.
So then, if you're from the Michigan side of this, how do you find an edge against Arizona? I love your Spider-Man meme. I think it's so accurate. How do you find an edge?
I think Elliot Cadeau has to be really good. So I mentioned the lead guard situation where I favor Bradley, but Cadeau in some big games has not been good. When he is really good, that's a problem. How Arizona's going to defend where they play that drop coverage with Krivas in the lane, there are going to be times where Cadeau's going to come open at a 3-point line, and he's going to have to, if he steps in and makes his first 2 or so, that could be big. I mean, if he can shoot it consistently. Sometimes Michigan can turn it over. Sometimes they have a penchant to be loose with the ball. Arizona doesn't force you into turnovers. A very sound defensive team. They're not out in passing lanes a lot. But Michigan sometimes has gotten lackadaisical, loose with the ball, and sometimes Cadeau can do that. So his ability to be efficient, to make threes if they're playing that, when they play that drop coverage, to help run the team, to make the right pass, to help set the tempo. Sometimes turnovers can be contagious. They need to value every possession along the way. And their wings have to be big. Burnett, Gale, McKinney off the bench. And Lendenborg has to have, a monster game. I was taught, we had Mark Few yesterday on the Sirius XM shows that I'm doing out here, and Few was coaching for Gonzaga in that game where Michigan had their coming out party guys at the beginning of the year at the Players era. Michigan struggled against Wake Forest, should have lost that game, should have lost TCU, didn't. And then when they got to Players era, they started hitting on all cylinders. They beat Gonzaga up by 40, and it was never competitive. And Few said that first possession is Lendenborg hit a step back 3 from about 27 feet. He goes, man, that looks like a USA basketball player I'm coaching in the summers. We could be in trouble. And he did tell Tommy Lloyd, he told Tommy Lloyd, who's his former assistant, when they had dinner the other night, if this team's making threes, look out. So the wings and their ability to shoot the ball, if they are shooting at a high clip and space out that defense, Michigan could obviously win this game and could cut down the nets. I think these are the 2 best teams left. But again, you could make a case, as we kind of have, for all 4 of these teams.
I mean, to that point, you say these are the 2 best teams left. There's an overwhelming sentiment that I agree with, that the winner of this game will win the national championship. Is that fair, in your opinion?
It's fair for all of us to think that, or many of us to think that, and Vegas will think that whoever wins this will be the favorite by anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5 points, I imagine. The problem, though, is in a one-game scenario with a very quality opponent on the other side, anything can happen. So, I mean, there's no reason to, especially if it's Illinois, Michigan. We've already seen this game play out earlier in this year. So there's no reason to assume that Illinois or UConn couldn't win the game. That's a bridge way too far. It's just they will be favored, and we think that'll happen in one game scenario with other really good teams on their side. Of course, they could lose.
What's the bigger narrative buster? Because we certainly haven't seen a championship team from the Big Ten, and they put how many teams into this tournament. We also haven't seen a West Coast national champion. So of those two teams, which one sort of quiets loud narratives more?
The West Coast thing, maybe if you're from the West Coast, which I'm not, I was born and bred in Pittsburgh and I've always lived in the East Coast. I don't care. It just does not matter. I mean, Gonzaga's been in a national championship game. You've had other teams trying to compete there and get to the spot and just fall short. I don't care. For the Big Ten, it's more the branding of that conference. And talking to a lot of their coaches, they care because they want that perception to go away. It's kind of a narrative they're tired of. I think there've been 8 since Michigan State won. There've been 8 Big Ten teams to play in the final and lose, most recently Purdue. So they've gotten to that thing almost 33% of the time that just haven't been able to cut down the nets. I think they want that to happen. I think the league would like it to happen. Every coach you talk to wants to happen just to end that brand perception, end that narrative, end that discussion. They're tired of it. The West Coast, the west of the Mississippi is just such a broad thing. I just don't think it matters.
So we know that sports in general are copycat sports. College basketball is no different. So with ADs, conference commissioners, coaches at home watching this Final Four, what is something tangible that you think that other teams across the country can replicate and that made these 4 teams legitimate title contenders?
Well, particularly with 3 of the 4 of them, UConn is significantly smaller in terms of its positional size and in the interior. It really is. Caravan as a 4 is not as big as these other teams that are playing bigger 4 and 5. So, and you looked at the other 1 seed too in Florida, like the bigs in college basketball are back and it's relevant. I think you're seeing that they have that physicality and that size where you can either throw the ball to guys on the block or in Illinois' case, guys that can space out, shoot it, and they can score in the interior. Is something of tremendous value. And I think what also teams are seeing is, you can go over to Europe and get these European pros. And it wasn't just Illinois. There's a bunch of other teams that have done it, but they did it a lot and to a lot of success. I mean, they've got four dudes that are from Eastern Europe that have played at a professional level and have come over here. So I think other teams are looking at how do we get the high major teams? How do we get big? How are we physical, but also remain skilled? And a lot of that skill with size does reside in the European professional league. So I wonder how teams are able to invest and find that. It's not easy to do. You have to be connected. You have to have great assistant coaches. Orlando Antigua has been critical for Brad Underwood to go there. But Brad set that mission of like, okay, let's look more at this. And that was an angle to take that I remember talking to him about last summer, that this was their approach. And a couple other coaches were noting that approach. So I want to see other teams. I'm sure they'll try to do it, and other teams have to this year. But to that success, they'll look at that. And the size piece of things is a really big deal.
We spent a lot of time, not we, but the basketball community, wringing our hands in the beginning of this tournament about the death of Cinderellas and the problems with college basketball and all of these different things. Now that we sit with these Final Four teams, has it all been worth it?
I mean, this is the state of where we're at. Now, we have 2 years, Fitzy, of this data where the portal and the money in the game has seemed to separate the Cinderella, I'm saying Cinderella, the non-Power 4 leagues, from the Power 4 leagues. We, again, had no double-digit seed that was outside the Power 4 in the Sweet 16. That's back-to-back years. Prior to that, it had been once in 30 years. If we see it next year, too, Cinderella won't be dead because they have a chance, and it's the ultimate democracy. You get a chance, meritocracy. You get a chance to be at the table, win your league, and get in the dance and play. But the resources and the fact that these players, as soon as they become good, they're going to the high major level, has changed the dynamic. They advantage these mid-major teams that used to have of teams being older, together, and talented are gone. They are younger. They're not together. They're put together quickly, and they are talented, but they're usually they're not been playing for 3 to 4 years, which used to be their advantage to a lot of the high major teams who are recruiting the best high school kids and not having some of these older guys. So the model is flipped. We've got 2 years of data. It is what it is, and I think ultimately fans love Cinderella. They love an upset in the first, second round. They love a plucky story, but when it gets to this time, they want the big boys. They want the teams with 1s and 2s next to their names, or in Illinois' case, the 3. a lot of people have familiarity with 3 of the 4 of these teams. Illinois is a bit of that outsider to be like, maybe I didn't catch them this year. I don't really know Brad Underwood. It's his first Final Four. People know UConn and Dan Hurley. People have been watching Michigan all year and Dusty May thrash teams. They're quite aware of Arizona's success, but also they haven't been there since 97 and the brand name that Arizona basketball is. So I think when it gets to this point, we want the big dogs at the table, and they are.
Yeah, I didn't need St. Peter's in the Elite Eight a couple years ago. Great story, but I was like, okay, enough. You bring up Dan Hurley and UConn. Everybody knows Dan Hurley and UConn, obviously. If Dan Hurley wins his 3rd national championship in 4 years, where does that put him in the hierarchy of the greatest coaches who have ever coached college basketball?
Well, as he said to an official on a rant last year, I'm the best effing coach in the sport. So he knows he is. We know he is. There's truth to that statement. So arrogant but true. He is the best or one of the best coaches without a doubt in college sports. But to have 3 and 4 years, you are putting it into rarefied air. And we're talking like John Wooden era, like where the game was completely different and everything else was different back then. So this would be remarkable. He would just accelerate his Hall of Fame bid to probably be in the Hall of Fame before he hits 60 for sure. I think he's in his mid-50s right now. Like, it would be remarkable. And to do it with this team, mind you, guys, the team that he had, the first championship team and the second championship team, had a number of pros on that team, a number of NBA players, bigs, guards, both. This team doesn't, by and large. I mean, Braylon Mullins will be an NBA player because he's an elite scorer, elite shooter, I should say, and maybe will develop that skill will be very translatable to the NBA. Outside of that, I mean, Caravan's a winner and can stretch it, but in the NBA level, he's going to be a liability defensively, and will he ever find a spot? I don't know. We'll see. Can Terrace Reed translate? I don't know. We'll see. But in the years past, they had surefire NBA players and multiple lottery picks on those teams. So for him to win this thing without that level of talent and going against the other teams in this Final Four that have NBA talent would be really noteworthy. I think that's why the odds you showed to start the segment are the way they are. They are plus 575 for a reason. I think they're the least talented. They are the smallest team. And if he would somehow help them overcome that and win 3 and 4 years, it would rocket him to absolutely being the best coach in college sports and college basketball, and a Hall of Fame just a couple years away.
I just love that we constantly put the picture of his arms crossed with him doing the beaker face. Like, it's just, he looks so angry all the time. It's just
there you go.
He's always angry. He's always angry. All right,
that's
part of his charm. Dalen, I'm angry that I can't actually place a bet on the UConn game because I'm in the state of Connecticut. So as soon as I land in Indiana, boom, done, getting that done. Appreciate your time and your expertise, my friend. Hey, enjoy the entire experience. We'll talk to you soon.
That is probably the best thing of this being in Indiana. Betting is legal in this state. Being in Texas the last couple of years, I had to place bets before I got on a plane. We're good to go in game time and some live wagering too.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Thank God.
The people rejoice. The people rejoice. Thanks, Dalen. Follow him on social media at Dalen Cuff. Appreciate Dalen as always. Coming up, we got beef in Texas, and not the kind everybody likes to eat. This ain't brisket. It's bad.
What do you make of Dana's demeanor since getting into this?
I listened to all of his stuff where he used to just destroy boxing promoters, that we take no risk. And then I see him like tattoo on an island between Crawford and Canelo in a photo op where he's not doing anything. He's standing there just like one of us schmucky promoters in between two guys in like a stand-up cutout. It just feels off to me.
And the Lakers look like contenders right now. But Danny, I know you have some skepticism about this team's ability to actually get through the gauntlet that is the Western Conference. Why is that?
They'd have to beat Jokic, Wemby, and Shea in consecutive rounds, 2 of the 3 without home court advantage. I do not believe they can win 3 Western Conference playoff series. I do not believe that.
Now, they do hand the ball off straight up the middle. Swiggity Swooty went for the booty. That is a touchdown. What a run. I'm going to need a moment. Ball's in the air, and just like that, CJ Wyndham with yet another big play.
That was the exact play action after the first play of that drive. They set it up perfectly.
What was your impression of him? Do you feel like you have a friendship with Giannis now?
I feel like he was just my friend. Like, I didn't even see him as just a basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I was just like that's just my guy. Cause we were just chilling. Like, he took me to his home. He took me to his first we did his first dunk in his neighborhood. So like, he was just showing me around. And I think we still check up on each other. I just need to go to one of his games, which I promised him.
A brewing public spat in the Big 12. Cody Campbell does not run the Big 12. Brett Yormack tells the Avalanche Journal. Now, for anyone that's not aware, Brett Yormack is the commissioner of the Big 12. And for anyone also not aware, Cody Campbell is a very, very, very wealthy donor for Texas Tech. Caroline, this is the modern world we live in, where Cody Campbell certainly has plenty to say about what should, could, and would be happening for the Big 12. And the Big 12 commissioner is, let's say, firmly reminding him who's in charge. But is he right? I mean, this all gets a little hairy.
Yeah, I think this is an unintended consequence of the world that we're living in. NIL is a positive thing. Players getting compensated for their efforts is a good thing for them, for sports, for just the world in general. But any good thing comes with unintended or unforeseen circumstances. It's not crazy to think that a person like Cody Campbell, like you mentioned, he's a billionaire. He basically single-handedly paid for Texas Tech's roster that got to the college football playoff this past year. Najee Kennedy is the first $1 million woman to play in college softball. That is because Cody Campbell is paying her $1 million. Cody Campbell's wife played softball at Texas Tech. So Cody Campbell is essentially single-handedly funding Texas Tech athletics. And we're talking about a lot of alumni with probably a lot of money in Lubbock, Texas. That's oil country right there. It's not crazy to think that somebody who is a billionaire and has invested millions of dollars into a big-time program has power and influence and a voice that's heard. And when he says things, people listen. I listen. When Cody Campbell has something to say about the landscape of college sports, when Cody Campbell says anything, I listen, because I know that money equals influence. We all know that money equals power. So while Brett Yormark is the commissioner of the Big 12, and it's fair to say that maybe Cody Campbell's voice is a little bit louder. Maybe Cody Campbell's voice is heard just a little bit more, because that's what money does. It's not crazy to think that college football coaches have less power now than they used to. Because if you're a multi-million-dollar donor and you say, I want this quarterback, what are you going to do? You as a coach, are you going to say no? You as a coach, what are you going to do? We're not going to play that guy that you spend millions of dollars on? As an athletic director, who really pulls the strings? Is it the AD, or is it the cajillionaire that's lining everyone's pockets with investing in the football program, the basketball program, whatever it might be? The people with money, have always had the most power. Now, the people who have the most money and the most power in college sports are the ones who paid the athletes, are the ones who donate to collectives, are the biggest NIL donors out there. So, yeah, Brett Yormark, I understand that you're feeling a little bit of a power struggle here with Cody Campbell, but welcome to the reality of hierarchy in business, in sports, and in life. Those who have the most money hold all the cards.
Cody Campbell, according to reports, donated $25 million specifically towards the Texas Tech Stadium. In addition, he's the main sort of catalyst of what's called the Matador Club, a group that has raised $63.3 million as of August of last year since its existence. So, 7-8 months ago, all that goes towards Texas Tech Collective, $63.3 million, and his $25 million on top of that. Art imitates life, and sometimes life imitates art. Cody Campbell is Buddy Garrity. And for anyone that's ever watched Friday Night Lights, the TV show or the movie, or read the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Buddy Garrity is a fictional character based on real people in Friday Night Lights, whatever it is, in Texas, that owned the used car dealership. And all the way back when that show was on in the early 2000s, Buddy would knock on Coach's door in the middle of the night and say, you know what? The guy's been talking about it. We don't really think you got the right game plan. You know what? The guy's been talking about it. We don't think you're starting the right quarterback. You know what? The guys have been talking about, and they can say all these things because everybody knew that they were giving all the money to the entire program. So coach had this constant battle. This isn't just coach with the battle. This is an entire conference with the battle, because now all of this has been taken and it's been multiplied times 100. This is where, honestly, we talk so much about the bad of players getting paid. I'm not here to talk about that. I love players getting paid. This is the bad of having massive money involved for everybody involved. This is part of why when you're a coach, all of a sudden, are you making the real decisions on who you want to start at quarterback, or are you feeling pressured by the people that paid the money? There's Buddy right there for you. Love that. Coach Taylor just shaking in his boots over Buddy Garrity looking at him. Like, this is where we are. And we're at the spot now where it's so much money. It's not just Texas Tech that's impacted. It's the entire Big 12. And eventually it will be all of college football. Like, this is what happens when we want to live in the wild, wild west financially. And I'm sorry, like, at the end of the day, Brett Yormark, he gets paid to rep the Big 12. But how much will the Big 12 suffer if there's no Brett Yormark versus how much Texas Tech will suffer if there's no Cody Campbell, right? So if you're Texas Tech, you don't really care that much about what Brett Yormark thinks. You better care what Cody Campbell thinks. And you didn't make so much money that you can give $100 million to your favorite team just because you want to by being bad at business. Like, Cody Campbell knows his power in negotiation here. So it's just the whole power system is in front of our eyes in a very transparent way. It is all changing, and the weight is going to the money, not to the people sitting in the suit saying that they know what's best for the entire conference.
And the reason why this all came up was because Cody Campbell was pushing back on the TV deal that Brett Yormark agreed to, and one stipulation of that TV deal is the fact that the Big 12 may have Friday night games, and Cody Campbell did not like that. He talked about, Friday nights in Texas are sacred for high school football. I think that's a nice sentiment and all, but essentially I think what Cody Campbell is saying is a college football game on a Friday night feels kind of JV. And he didn't want his team, Texas Tech, playing on a Friday night when, the premier matchups and the premier TV money comes in on a Saturday. But I think Brett Yormark, when he says that, Cody Campbell doesn't run the Big 12, I do. I think that's coming from a place of insecurity. Because Brett Yormark understands the Big 12's hierarchy in college sports right now. Because the Big 10's TV deal, Big 10, their TV deal is $8 billion. $8 billion. The SEC's is $3 billion, I believe, a year. But the Big 12's is $2.28 billion over the span of, I believe, 4 years. So the Big 12 is making significantly less money than the SEC and the Big 10. The Big 12 was represented in the college football playoff for the very first time this past season. Brett Yormark went on and on and on and on about how the Big 12 runs college basketball. I look at the Big 10 right now with 2 teams in the Final Four. I'd say it's probably them. All right, look at the SEC that had 14 teams in the tournament last season and had a national championship, and I say maybe it's them that runs college basketball. The Big 12 is outside of the 2 powers that be in college sports. It's the Big 10, it's the SEC, and it is everybody else. And there's a massive divide in competitiveness, and there's a massive divide in money. Brett Yormark feels that. So I think having Cody Campbell push back on a lot of the decisions that Brett Yormark has made, understanding Cody Campbell's money and his power and his influence, I'm sure it makes Brett Yormark feel vulnerable about the Big 12's place in terms of college sports hierarchy.
Yeah, Brett Yormark has about as much power in all of this as a husband that says he truly runs the relationship with his wife. He doesn't. Brett, it's good. You're there in title. Yeah. We appreciate it, but we all know where the power lies. We got some breaking news. Want to make sure everybody gets this. From a rivalry in the Big 12 to a rivalry, unfortunately, we won't get to see at the Masters. Phil Mickelson will not be playing at the Masters, so he's pulled out. Will be out for an extended period to deal with the family health matter. This will be the first Masters without Tiger and Phil since 1994, Caroline. This is a true new moment for golf and a true changing of the guard where we are going to be forced to acknowledge the new talent in the sport and not simply rely on watching the legends we're used to.
And hey, I will reiterate the same thing that I said about Tiger. If Phil needs to take some time away from the spotlight and away from the game of golf in order to better himself, then good for him. I support that wholeheartedly. But Fitz, I don't think the Masters are really gonna miss Tiger and Phil that much. Of course, it's gonna feel weird. Of course, there's gonna feel like a void. Of course, we feel like two legends of the game not being there is gonna feel, sad in a certain way. But I feel like the game of golf has evolved so much. We have so many new and young superstars that have entered the sport that although we'll, be sorry to not see Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods, how much will we really miss them? How much will it not feel like Augusta? Because I feel like even without those two, it'll still feel like the Masters.
The Masters will always be the Masters, right? Like there will come a day where Jim Nance isn't welcoming us in, and there'll come a day that, we won't be talking just about the pimento sandwiches. Like there will come a day that all the tones of the Masters change. And that's fine because it's still the Masters. To your point, Caroline, I think as hard as this is for some golf fans, it's necessary. And I love ripping the Band-Aid off. Give me a Masters where one of the storylines is who isn't there, simply because it forces us to pay attention to who is. More than ever, it's a great time for golf to decide on the new personalities that people will gravitate to year in and year out. But bigger than all of that, bigger than any individual, will always be Augusta. We will focus on Augusta on this show. Obviously, we'll have plenty to get you caught up on Masters and get you ready for it coming up next week. Coming up next, we will get back to the NBA, a massive, massive night for the Lakers in every possible terrible way. We'll talk to Tom Haberstroh about it coming up next.
What are some things about the Detroit Pistons that we on the outside might not know?
The culture, when I walked into this, the culture for me was pretty impressive. The way the players kind of come to bat for each other. And, Isaiah Stewart is not a guy off the court that is like an angry human being. In that Charlotte game, it was all he was saying in the locker room was like, I'm going to have your guys back. That's what I do. For me, it's impressive to see just how together everyone is and, the culture that they've continued to build.
I have Sadiq at the top like you. That's not the surprise. Sam Roush from Stanford, who had the big combine, unlike a lot of college tight ends that are productive, he actually, in my opinion, is playing the position like a pro right now. I love how he rumbles after the catch. I like Sam Roush quite a bit, Nate, because I just love that I could put him on the line of scrimmage, and I think he's tough as hell.
If you're a team that needs a left tackle, would you be concerned that this seemingly is a right tackle draft?
Concern, no, because you got to have a plan for it. And this is where your area scouts and the forecasting of what's coming out in the draft is important, and understanding that. I want to go back to CC Mauanoa that you talked about. I think his overall stock is up for me because I'm feeling like now, if you have CC Mauanoa on your team, now he gives you the ability to put your best five on the field, whether he's your right tackle or he's your guard.
See the snap.
Jerome the throw, and that's caught. Demonstreet goes up and gets it, and it'll be 1st and goal for New Mexico.
Demonstreet's having a day.
1st and goal. Johnson on the keeper, and he'll throw it up, and Jefferson's got it. Touchdown, New Mexico. How do you like that?
Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Tom Haberstroh joining you right out of the gates here because it was an epically bad night for the Lakers. There's no way to couch this. It isn't terrible, Tom. As you join us, Luka, for anyone that didn't see it last night, hobbled in the first half, and then in the second half goes down. It's a hamstring injury. We are awaiting an MRI to figure out the severity of the injury. Oh, and also in the middle of this, the Lakers got their butts absolutely whooped by the Thunder. They were down 32 points at the half. Tom, let me just start right there in the very basic. When you're down by 30 at the half and Luka's hobbled, did you have a problem with J.J. Redick putting him in at the beginning of the second half? As Redick said afterwards, he wanted to give them about 6 minutes to see if they made it a game. Did you have a problem with that?
I didn't really have a problem with that, although I wonder how much of the 65 game rule was at play here. He was suspended in the last game for his 16th technical. And what we see in the NBA is guys are coming back to try to fulfill the 65 game rule. This would have been his 65th game. And it would have, his next game would be his 65th game. And so he, I think, wanted to make sure that he would lock that in. And he was hobbled throughout the game. And this is kind of the worry, is that these guys are pushing hard to get that eligibility for all NBA. If he did not play in this game and the next game or the rest of the season, he would be at risk of not being eligible for all NBA or the MVP conversation. And so a lot of guys at this stage of the season are trying to fight through injuries and still be eligible for the award. And now we see it backfired in a big way, because now it looks like Luka Doncic, there's a possibility he misses the rest of the regular season and perhaps deeper into the postseason. In StreetClothes.com, which tracks injuries by Jeff Stotts, he's the injury guru in the NBA, he has found that nondescript hamstring injuries, like they did not say what kind of grade it was. They were going to wait until the MRI comes in. But on average, you'll see that Luka Doncic, those type of injuries are out 22 days or 9 games equivalent for these types of injuries. So this is a risk reward that the NBA has decided. They wanted to implement a 65 game rule. And you're seeing Anthony Edwards disqualified after last night's illness/knee injury that held him out of the game. Cade Cunningham in jeopardy of missing the All-NBA team because of his collapsed lung as we go down to the stretch. I just think this is a moral hazard for the NBA to have these teams, these coaches, these medical staffs balancing all the different variables. And one of them I think is unnecessary is the 65 game rule. At this point, Luka Doncic is not going to be eligible, and you wonder how much of the calculus in him being hobbled and playing down the stretch had something to do with that.
I am going to bestow upon you the honor of being the commissioner of the NBA. Congratulations. I'm with you. I think the 65 game rule probably does more harm than good. What would you do to curb load management, to make sure that you're seeing your stars out on the court far more often than not? How would you address this if you were in charge?
Cut down the games on the schedule. Make it 58 games. I know that sounds radical, but you know what it's radical? Is that 33% of national TV games are fully staffed by the stars in those national TV games. 2 out of every 3 national TV games this season have not had the full complement of the stars. And by stars, I mean All-Star, All-NBA in any of the previous 3 seasons or this season. And that is in the NBA's player participation policy, where we are seeing more than not, often than not, players who are missing. We saw last night on Amazon Prime, no Cade Cunningham. We knew that going into the game. And then a late scratch for Anthony Edwards in a game in which he is now disqualified from All-NBA. And I think the calculus for the NBA is to understand the long-term cost of having these fans watching these games that don't feel big. Because yes, they are on national TV. They're on Amazon Prime, on NBC. But time and time again, it is very clear that the NBA season is too long. And if guys are fighting through injuries just to get to the postseason, you are actually at risk for long-term injury. We saw Tyrese Halliburton, Jason Tatum, and Damian Lillard deal with injuries and fight through them in the postseason and then tear their Achilles. I think everybody, all the stakeholders, the owners, the players, the league office, and the TV partners need to come together and come to their senses that 82 games made sense when we had to fill seats back in the 50s and 60s. That playing that many games to fill the gate revenue when there were no national TV contracts, there were no local TV contracts. But now the economics have changed. And I do think that the injury risk with the game being so fast, we have to stop putting our heads in the sand and realize this is not working. The fans are in long-term cost of fans tuning into the national TV games and not seeing the players that they want to watch, with Cade Cunningham being out, Luka Doncic leaving in the third quarter, being hobbled. And then we also saw Austin Reeves. Don't forget, Austin Reeves had to go back to the locker room and to come back and fight through a back injury. And who knows how that's going to impact him going forward in the postseason. And too much of the conversation in the NBA is about no stars being on the floor or missing stars being on the floor. And you can read more about it at Yahoo Sports, my column that dropped last night about how only 33% of national TV games in the NBA this season have had the full complement of stars because they're too they're too banged up and injured. And I don't think this is a load management issue. I think this has been miscast as a load management. Guys are resting in these games. No, their bodies can't withstand the rigors of the NBA season with the three-point shot, expanding the geometry of the game in ways we've never seen before, and the speed at which these guys are asked to play at, where the NBA wants this freedom of movement. They knock down the 10-second rule, backcourt rule to 8 seconds to get guys moving and playing more up-tempo. And I just think that the game is way too ballistic, way too high velocity, and too much torque on these joints and these muscles that it's way different than it was when we were growing up, guys. And I think the NBA and the league partners and the players need to seriously look at overhauling the system and making sure that long-term, the next generation of stars, we're not seeing them miss 40 games a year.
Your point is such an important one. Pace of play is so different for everybody that says, yeah, but they played 82 games in the 90s. They played it, go back and watch on YouTube. Watch an old basketball game versus now. They're totally different games. What your body's being asked to do is different. Here's the one thing, though, about load management that I can't wrap my head around, and I'll let you correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I understand it, the origination of load management as a principle came from Pop, who realized I need my guys in the playoffs to be as good as they can, so I'm going to start resting guys. What bothers me is I even heard on ESPN this morning, Greeny talk about the players did this to themselves because they sat so much. At what point do we start to blame the teams for what we're looking at here? Because this arbitrary 65 games has massive consequence to the players who I would argue weren't even the main catalyst for load management. The teams were, and the teams never get penalized, Tom.
Yeah, David Stern would never let this happen, how the players are being blamed for this. Adam Silver has an image problem for the league that this is a player's decision to have his hamstring hurt. This is a player's decision for the teams to say, look, we want you healthy for the postseason on this back-to-back where we're traveling overnight and traveling across time zones. The medical staff is recommending for these players to sitting out. It is a huge misnomer that the players are asking out, that they want to cash their checks and sit and on the bench in their street clothes. The players don't want this. They have egos too. They want to prove that they are the best players in the world every single night, and their bodies are not letting them, and the medical staff is not letting them. So David Stern, I feel like, would recognize that we cannot let the players be cast as the villains in this. And there is a branding issue. There is an image issue that the NBA is constantly fighting that, unfortunately, it's easier for fans. And I feel this too. I don't know what the NFL executives look like. I don't know who the medical staff is in the NFL. So if I'm going to blame anybody or see a face to an issue regarding the injury or missing NFL stars, I'm just going to instinctively look at the players because those are the familiar faces. And so for the NBA, that is the image problem that they have, is that the fans have no choice oftentimes, but as a reflex, be like, man, I wish that Anthony Edwards fought through that illness last night to play in that game, when we don't know what the medical staff determination was behind the scenes. So it's easier to knee-jerk response, blame the players. But this is a problem, is that the NBA, unlike any other sport in America, is built on the marketing of its superstars. And unfortunately, superstars are missing 1 out of every 3 games now. And for that, it's just a matter of time before fans tune out, because they recognize every time I go to watch these games, they're sitting and they're injured. And I think everybody needs to come to the table. And I don't think Pop deserves all of the blame. But certainly it all started that night in Miami when not only the San Antonio Spurs rested those guys, they sent them home. You couldn't even see them on the bench because Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs recognized it's better for them health-wise long-term to send them back to San Antonio after a long road trip. So this is a structural issue. It is a marketing issue. And I hope that everyone comes together and recognizes that before long, the regular season is going to be seeming like the preseason, and we can't let that happen. As people who love the NBA, we want the regular season to feel big, and right now it does feel like the preseason.
So let's zoom in a little bit. We don't know the extent of Luka's injury. He's undergoing an MRI today. We haven't heard any news, at least as of the time that we're talking with you, Tom. So what does this mean for the Lakers in the postseason?
Disaster. There's no two ways about it. Hamstring injuries are notoriously difficult to manage in the postseason. We saw Stephen Curry deal with this, Aaron Gordon deal with this last year, is when these soft tissue injuries pop up. And right now it is the postseason for the Lakers. We got about a week before the postseason starts. But right now we're jostling for position in the postseason. This is essentially the ramp up before everything gets heightened. And I think it's going to be tough for Luka Doncic to not only come back, but to ramp up enough that you can do it in a healthy, sustainable manner. And ramping up in the postseason is notoriously difficult. So considering that LeBron James is 41 years old and Austin Reeves is dealing with a back issue and you're seeing Marcus Smart out, this is an enormous challenge for JJ Redick and the organization heading into an offseason that is already uncertain regarding the status of LeBron James. They haven't for the entirety of this season played well together. Austin Reeves, LeBron, and Luka Doncic. And last year they dealt with injuries to all three. And so this is I think that it's a two-team race in the Western Conference. I think the Lakers were talking themselves into that conversation recently, but I do think that the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder have separated themselves to such an extent, and maybe the Denver Nuggets can jump into that conversation, but without Aaron Gordon healthy, I just can't put them on the same tier as OKC and San Antonio. But certainly, I'm counting out the Los Angeles Lakers as title contenders now with Luka Doncic being out indefinitely.
You guys can follow him on Twitter, X Tom Haberstroh, at Tom Haberstroh. The article on Yahoo is great, by the way. It's a really eye-opening deep dive into how much TV is paying the consequence of players not being available. Guys, go check it out. Tom, always appreciate it. We had a lot we were going to cover, but then this happened. So we'll have to get you back, and we'll cover the rest of it. But we appreciate your insights, my friend.
Anytime, guys.
It's great stuff.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, coming up next, speaking of great stuff, the Hornets are giving it right now. Play in, play offs. We'll look at some of the teams that are trying to find their way next.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flagg, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level. Shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Well deserved.
That was Hornets head coach Charles Lee showering Con Knipple. It's like the new tradition in all of basketball is just little tiny bottles of water. I don't know if that's like That's better or worse than getting a whole Gatorade bath. I don't know. It feels like that's like death
Definitely
by
better.
1,000 cuts. But that's the celebration of the rookie sensation, breaking the franchise record for most three-pointers in a season. Oh, by the way, they also shellacked the Suns by 20 points. Caroline, we're gonna take a look at some April showers, May flowers. We're gonna get some vibes going here. What are the vibes right now for the Hornets?
The vibes are great. And of course, you're looking at the Eastern Conference standings, and it's incredibly tight in between, I mean, really like 6 to 12. Like, there are not very many games separate the teams like in the middle of the Eastern Conference, and the Hornets find themselves squarely in the middle of that, kind of jockeying out of the play-in and into the playoffs. But overall, the vibes are great. I mean, the Hornets have won 9 of their last 11. Con Knippel is Rookie of the Year. It's done. It is Con Knippel. You're getting so much production from up and down the roster. LaMelo is good for a double-double on any given night, which is exactly what he had last night. Miles Bridges had 25. Brandon Miller had 17. Con Knippel was 4 for 9 from 3. I mean, and you had 2 guys off the bench with double-digit points in Grant Williams and Kobe White. Kobe White was a fantastic addition for this team. The vibes are great, and that is why if we're saying April showers or May flowers, I am giving all the flowers to this Hornets team. And Kelly Eco came on the show last week and made a very good point. But look, the Hornets very well could go one and done in the postseason, but I live in Charlotte. I think everyone in Charlotte would be okay with that because you're seeing progress and you're seeing things click for all of these young superstars, that even if it's an early exit this year, that doesn't mean doom and gloom for the future. That means nothing but optimism for the future. So vibes are great. May flowers for the Hornets. Huge win for them last night and huge night for Con Knippel. And look at that hair. It's fantastic.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the lettuce is undefeated there. So here's how we're going to do this. April showers and May flowers. We got 4 teams. We'll decide if the play-in will send them to the showers. They're done. Or if they'll get their flowers and move on to the playoffs. So you mentioned flowers for the Hornets. The Hornets right now in sole position of the 8th seed. They're a game and a half back of Philly and Toronto for the 6th with 6 to play. I agree with you on flowers for them. I think the playoffs are inevitable, not just the play-in. And part of this is a couple of things. One, I'll take the fact that, as you mentioned, they're hot. They're hotter than anybody else that's between that 7, 8, 9, 10. They're hotter than the rest of those teams right now. But then the other part of it is the youth. I do think that there's something to the play-in for a young team that's coming in with a little bit of a fire in their belly, a little bit of a nobody thought we'd be here. So you've got a hot team for the Hornets that can put up offense on anybody, right, that can score from absolutely anywhere right now. I like Charlotte a lot in this situation, and not for nothing, they're still far better defensively than any of the teams that we're talking about through 6 through 10. So I think the combination of the ability to shoot from outside, the combination of the ability to put up points and stifle points, and then also a young team that's going to come into the play-in with a lot of fire, I will give them flowers also. So we agree on flowers there. Let's see how we feel about the Suns. The Suns take the big loss here, but 42 wins. They're firmly atop the West play-in standings. Showers or flowers for the Phoenix Suns?
It's showers for me. They're going to the showers. They're done. It's going to be some rainy days in Phoenix, except hopefully not next Saturday. Look, there's a term that me and my friends always like to use, and that is plain bagels. It defines like a lot of guys that we would date. You know, like there's nothing bad about him. He's smart enough. He's good looking enough. He's a plain bagel. Like nobody's gonna reach for the plain bagel, but they'll take it if there's no everything bagel. Like you'll take it if there's no cinnamon crunch bagel left, but it's never gonna be anyone's first choice. It's kind of what the Suns are. They're just kind of middle of the road, bottom of the NBA in offense. They've been a middling defensive team over their last 10 games. They're 9, or they've only won 2 of their last 11 games. They've lost 9 of their last 11. That's pretty brutal. But at their best, I think the Suns are just kind of plain bagels. And I don't think that you can be a plain bagel this time of the year, especially in this West. So I'm going to say showers for the Suns, especially because they put up 41 points in the first quarter alone and they lost by double digits. That is rough.
So first and foremost, I prefer plain bagels. I would always take a plain bagel over an everything bagel. That's not even a hot take. And I'm a plain bagel aficionado. Also, like the best
The Suns are your
cheese.
team.
Like, Like, yeah, no, like great pizza doesn't need toppings, just cheese, right? Like, I'm a plain bagel guy. The Suns are a stale plain bagel. The Suns are a stale plain bagel where I walk into the kitchen and it's been sitting out for like 4 days. And I look at it and say, man, I really want this bagel. I want to eat this bagel. But then as I cut the bagel open and I realize I'm about to have it, I'm like, it's not worth the calories. It's going to be stale. It's going to be kind of chewy. It's not going to be chewy in the good way. It's not going to have anything that really makes me afterwards. I'm going to regret eating the bagel. That's the Suns. They are a stale bagel to me because plain bagels are elite. The Suns don't do anything that scares anybody realistically night in, night out. They seem to still lack any sort of continuity as a team, and they seem to lack depth. So there's just nothing that scares me about the Phoenix Suns. Unfortunately for Phoenix, it just hasn't gelled together at all this year. Absolutely showers. They're one and done in this, or two and done in this process. They'll be done right away. How about this? The Sixers, all right? The Sixers tied with the Raptors for 16, 42 and 34. Big three back. They've been riding it a little bit hot compared to some of the other mediocrity. Showers or flowers for the Sixers?
If they're healthy, it's flowers. And of course, you could call that a cop-out. Of course, you could call that lazy because, that's, I think, conditional for any team in any sport. You got to be healthy if you want to make a run in the postseason. I understand that. But you bring the big threes back together, and that's because the Sixers' big three have not been consistently together as of late. So when you see Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid and that entire team healthy and playing at their best, it's 1,000% flowers. But I worry about the reliability and the consistent health of this team. Overall, Fitzy, I'm going to say flowers, but that's with a little bit of an asterisk, considering some of the injury bug that have been bitten in Philadelphia.
I like the fact that they're getting everybody together, and I still want to believe this is a backcourt that early in the year we just fell in love with, rightfully so. So we kept saying, man, once Embiid gets in, it's going to be great. And, that hasn't happened much. Shocking. Their remaining schedule, though, I mean, yeah, they've got a couple of really bad teams in there, but they still have to play Minnesota, Detroit, and San Antonio. So they've got some tough games ahead of them. They're going to kind of prove where they belong in this process. Then they get Houston, Indiana, Milwaukee. So there's a nice little runway at the end. There's just enough here. I originally wanted to go flowers because they are so hot. I'll go showers, though. I've overthought myself on this. I'm going to go showers on this just because, as you mentioned, I need everything to come together perfectly, and they've got some tough games in that process. I don't feel great about all of that together, so I think I go showers. This one is the toughest for me of all of the teams. How about, though, we'll save the best for last, the Clippers. The Clippers, not the Clippers for the controversies, not the Clippers for the salary cap, work, not the Clippers for the trade. The Clippers, like the Hornets, have absolutely dragged themselves out of a massive hole. They're now in the 9th seed at 39 and 38. We have spent all year trying to figure out if we can believe in the Clippers. Are you going to give them showers or flowers now that they've gotten themselves into this situation?
Oh, it's showers for me, Fitzy. We've done this so many times with the Clippers this season. We don't believe in them. And then, oh, wait, they give us enough to believe in them. Oh, no. Then they're bad again. Oh, but no. Then they're bad again. They're like the basketball team version of the kombucha girl meme. They're so hot and cold. And look, they're getting a really high quality version of Darius Garland. You saw Darius Garland drop 20 against Portland, 15 against the Bucks, 30 against the Pacers. But then you saw Darius Garland put up 11 points, go 5 for 17 from the field against San Antonio. I think Darius Garland might be a microcosm for what this Clippers team is, and I think a team that's good enough to beat the bad teams, but not good enough to beat the good teams. And if you can't beat the good teams, maybe you're not a good team. So for that, I say showers.
They've got Sacramento, Dallas, Portland, Golden State. Those are bad teams left. That's 4 easy wins. They have Oklahoma City. They'll get absolutely shellacked by OKC. To be clear, I do not believe that the Clippers are particularly good. But if I have to look around at the West overall and try and figure out whether or not I'm going to get them flowers or whether I'm going to send them to the showers, well, I don't think Golden State's going to get healthy enough to scare anybody, and they don't scare me if they are healthy. The Portland Trailblazers, shocking news here, they suck. And I already told you I don't believe in the Suns. So I'm looking around and saying, I gotta believe in somebody. That's true. Going full share. Do you believe? Yeah, I'm in. I'm believing in the Clippers. They're going to make it to the playoffs. I'm giving them flowers. And then mostly that just gives us more and more drama. We'll get into the playoffs. I love this world where suddenly the Clippers get into the playoffs, and then we have to talk more about whether or not they should be penalized for salary cap circumvention. Like, the league's just waiting for the Clippers to get eliminated so that then they can divvy out whatever the tiny punishment's going to be for that entire thing. Like, I'm waiting for all of this to happen, but just the lover of chaos in me says, I believe in the Clips. So we'll see. We'll see if we get. Well, you know what? That's why you're smarter than I am. But I am an agent of chaos, and the agent of chaos has absolutely bought all in. All right. From the NBA back to some of what we can expect over the weekend from college basketball. Ben Fawkes going to join us next. We'll see what he thinks about the action in Indy.
What do you make of Dana's demeanor since getting into this?
I listened to all of his stuff where he used to just destroy boxing promoters, that we take no risk. And then I see him like tattoo on an island between Crawford and Canelo in a photo op where he's not doing anything. He's standing there just like one of us schmucky promoters in between two guys in like a stand-up cutout. It just feels off to me.
And the Lakers look like contenders right now. But Danny, I know you have some skepticism about this team's ability to actually get through the gauntlet that is the Western Conference. Why is that?
They'd have to beat Jokic, Wemby, and Shea in consecutive rounds, 2 of the 3 without home court advantage. I do not believe they can win 3 Western Conference playoff series. I do not believe that.
Now, they do hand the ball off straight up the middle. Swiggity Swooty went for the booty. That is a touchdown. What a run.
I'm going to need a moment.
Ball's in the air, and just like that, C.J. Wyndham with yet another big play.
That was the exact play action after the first play of that drive. They set it up perfectly.
What was your impression of him? Do you feel like you have a friendship with Giannis now?
I feel like he was just my friend. Like, I didn't even see him as just a basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I was just like that's just my guy. Cause we were just chilling. Like, he took me to his home. He took me to his first we did his first dunk in his neighborhood. So like, he was just showing me around. So and I think we still check up on each other. Cool. I just need to go to one of his games, which I promised him.
One bettor's $1 million dream lives on thanks to UConn's last-second shot. There's a bettor at DraftKings that wagered $77,000 on UConn to win the 2026 NCAA tournament at 13-1 odds. Bet would win $1,001,000. Ben Fawkes, why did I not make that bet? I should have done it then. Ben joins us now as we take a look at some of the odds out there. Ben, I don't know. I always look at those things. I think, how awesome. Somebody's going to say he won $1 million. How many bets did you lose for $77,000 each before you finally hit on one for $1 million? That's all I'm saying, Ben.
A decent amount, I would say. Definitely a decent amount. I mean, 77 grand is a large wager as well. Now, it is on UConn, who is a shocking 17-1 straight up and against the spread their last 18 tournament games. So it's not a random team, but that's still quite a bet before the tournament.
So let's pull up the title odds here momentarily. As we look at the men's tournament, we have Michigan and Arizona, both with the shortest odds, as you see, to win the national championship. They are playing each other this weekend in the Final Four. Michigan just a slight 1.5 favorite over Arizona. How should bettors approach this one?
Yeah, so I think from the title odds, Sportsbook's in pretty good shape with these teams, right? For the most part, anytime you're going to have number 1 seeds. Now, Michigan was a little further down the odds board, but talking to some odds makers, the reason they're in good shape generally on Michigan is because in that tournament that we all remember back in Vegas when they crushed Gonzaga by 35, 40 points, they ran through that tournament. They were very quick to lower those odds from where Michigan's title odds were to kind of where they were after that and then the rest of the season. So that liability didn't add up in the same way that it could have if they had higher odds and kind of came out of nowhere or came later in the season in that way. So that was something where earlier in the year, odds makers had kind of already adjusted that, so they were in good shape there. Arizona's been low. UConn is the one team they'd like to potentially avoid, just because of, again, UConn was a little further down the odds board for much of that season, but I think odds makers aren't too concerned. One odds maker told me he actually kept UConn a little artificially high just because he wanted to take some bets on them. He didn't think that they would even get this far. And even if they do, again, they will be, as we'll discuss, an underdog against either Michigan or Arizona, whoever comes out of that game. So sportsbooks in pretty good shape. And for bettors, there are obviously a lot of bets on Duke, on some of the other teams that have already been eliminated as well.
How are bettors approaching Michigan, Arizona? Because Caroline and I think we've been pretty transparent. We have no damn clue who's going to win that game. So how are bettors approaching it?
Yeah, and it's what we've seen in both these spreads, right? So this opened at some sports books, Arizona, very small favorite, quickly flipped to Michigan as a favorite. Other sports books like BetMGM, this opened Michigan -1.5, and it basically has stayed there. Obviously, a very short spread between two really good teams. I think everyone's very excited to see this game. Kind of sees it as like the de facto national championship game. And again, even if you win, you still have to win that other game. Sometimes we see teams put everything into that one game, don't come out as well in Monday's title game. But to get to this one first, it's really been pretty split. The public slightly more on Michigan, but at BetMGM, it was just about 51% of bets, 51% of the money. So really, really split. And generally people betting Michigan to cover that kind of -1.5, and betting Arizona on the money line, because then figuring that point won't necessarily matter and you get +100 instead of -110. But in general, it's kind of just, do you think Arizona is better? Do you think Michigan's better, right? Because 1.5, generally, probably the spread you wouldn't think would make a difference. Obviously, we've seen that plenty in March Madness that it could, but it's kind of just pick which team you think is better. And I think Michigan has that better top end talent, and Arizona has great talent and also has the depth. So I would still probably lean towards Arizona if I was making a pick. But this is going to be a fantastic game. I really can't wait to watch. Public also on the over 156.5, pushed up to 157.5.
We see it there. Michigan getting 49% of the bets. That's exactly how this matchup feels. So incredibly 50-50. But I do want to look at the other side of the bracket, the other Final Four matchup that we're getting. You know, everybody is feeling that the UConn vibes. Everyone's got Dan Hurley fever, but Illinois, a slight favorite, 1.5 points over UConn. How are bettors viewing this one?
Yeah, and this actually opened even higher at some books. Opened Illinois -2.5 at BetMGM, -2 at some others. Respected money did come in on UConn to push this down a bit. It's really now kind of Illinois -2 or Illinois -1.5 in the market, depending on where you're looking. And again, kind of like we talked about with Michigan and Arizona, very, very split action. 52% of the bets, I believe. All right, we'll look at John Ewing since he has that there. But 46% of bets on Illinois, 41% of the money. It's actually a little more even as of this morning as well. I think 52% of bets, 55% of the money on Illinois. And again, same thing we've seen. So that basically people betting on the favorite or people betting on the underdog on the money line. 70% of the bets on UConn money line at +110. But the handle's right around 50-50. So again, a very split game between these two. Public on the over, a little lower total than the other game, 139.5 in this one. Interesting that I thought this spread would be a little higher, but somebody also pointed out that Illinois has played, one odds maker I spoke with, Illinois has played not as difficult a schedule, right? They've had some of those, a number 9 seed, right, Iowa, whereas UConn has faced the toughest path in terms of seeds going forward throughout the bracket. And so that kind of potentially raises their profile, their power rating a little bit. Obviously that crazy comeback against Duke, but ultimately all that matters is whether or not you advance. And interestingly enough, this will be UConn, assuming that they close as an underdog. This is the first time they'll be an underdog in consecutive tournament games since 2017. So not used to being an underdog, obviously under Dan Hurley. But as I said before, 17-1 in their last 18 NCAA tournament games, both straight up and against the spread. They've just been a machine for bettors.
So just a general curiosity you need to educate me on, because Dalen Cuff was joining us earlier, and he was talking about he really like it, Illinois. So, like a responsible adult, I went to my favorite app to try and place a bet, only to be reminded that in the state of Connecticut, I can't bet on UConn at this point. Like, it's just not allowed. So, how does that impact lines in Vegas when there's a team involved where essentially the entire home market, which you would think would be players and casual money coming into it, can't play in this game? They can't place any wagers.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's part of the reason some people were going for the federal legislation for sports betting, right, as opposed to state by state, because it is that patchwork. And in certain states, you can bet on just about everything, and you can bet on awards and MVPs. And in other states, Connecticut is one of them, you can't bet on the in-state college teams. And again, that's only college, which again only affects Connecticut, because unless I'm misremembering something, you don't have any pro teams in Connecticut, right? So this is just this is one where the college is affected. Overall, that probably would suppress the amount of money, right, on UConn at, let's say, a BetMGM or somewhere overall, where they're in a bunch of these states, including Connecticut. It's very rare that kind of these circumstances come up, but this is definitely one where, yeah, you're going to have to either drive across the border. Maybe there's a prediction market in your state, or other avenues potentially to wager if you want to get down on UConn.
Don't you forget about the Connecticut Sun now, Ben. Not for much
You're
longer.
right. You're right. See, I knew it.
For just one more year.
We got a few months,
Just
and then it's
one
gone.
more
Then
year.
it's gone.
Yeah, right. And then it'll be the Houston, whatever they want to call it. But, speaking of the WNBA, let's switch to the women's side of things. Go over to the title odds there. UConn was minus 275 to win the national championship before the start of the tournament. But now going into the Final Four, the Huskies' odds to win it all has shifted. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think this is kind of twofold. One, right, the Huskies now minus 185, which is still the odds-on favorite, right, overwhelming favorite. I think one is that we've seen the other, the quote-unquote worst-case scenario, right, where you have all the other number one seeds who have advanced. So that's part of it. And then UConn as well, not necessarily looking as good as even the betting market would indicate, right? I believe they were like a 27 and a half point favorite, I want to say, against Notre Dame, and only won by 18. So they've had some of those games where maybe they haven't looked as dominant. And so I think that's part of the reason for that shift. Ultimately, sportsbooks generally are still going to be rooting for UConn, just because it's very, very difficult outside of, some $1 million bets on UConn to build up a lot of liability with odds that short. And UConn really has been an odds-on favorite, I think, pretty much most of the season, even at better odds than we've seen there. So if you like UConn, this is kind of a cheap buy point. Potentially, if you still think they're the best team, you're getting a little bit of a discount. But I think that's part of the reason those odds have shifted a bit. And ultimately, it's still going to be, is there anyone that can beat UConn? And this is that situation where, I would defer to you. I don't think that there probably is, but ultimately, it's only one game, some cold shooting, some foul trouble, anything can happen.
I mean, yeah, you bring it up, the last couple of games, they haven't had that same kind of UConn edge, but I'll trust UConn and Gino Auriemma to have a championship edge in the Final Four in the biggest games that matter. But UConn's odds to win the national championship are not the only odds that have shifted. Going into the tournament, Texas had the fourth best odds to win the national championship. Fast forward to now, Texas has the second best odds to win the national championship. So make sense of that for us, Ben. That pretty massive leap over two other championship contenders in UCLA and South Carolina.
Yeah, and so I think this is also kind of twofold. One, Texas looking good, obviously making it this far. One sportsbook I spoke with did take some sharp action on Texas to win it all earlier in the season, and so that was one of the reasons that they had kept Texas kind of a little lower than potentially other teams, or than they would have if they hadn't taken that action before. So part of that, they've obviously made it this far. The big thing is they are that slight favorite as well against UCLA. So that's part of the reason they have the better odds. And then ultimately kind of comparing them to South Carolina, they have one very large hurdle they don't have to get over in the semifinal, which is they don't have to face UConn. So ultimately, that's part of the reason why right now I think their odds are a little shorter. Whereas if it was reversed, let's say, and they had to play UConn, they would still have those longer title odds just because they're going to be a much bigger favorite. South Carolina, about a 7.5 point underdog against UConn in that game. And as you would expect, a lot of money on UConn to cover as well.
Ben, whether we're talking men's or women's tournament, a lot of people will look at the most outstanding player. By the way, kudos to college basketball for naming it in a way that actually makes sense. We don't have to debate value. But what's the right way to bet the MOP award?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes I come on and I'm like, the best way to bet it is don't. And I think this is probably one where I lean towards that only for the casual bettor. Ultimately, if you're going to go into this market, right, hopefully you went earlier because that's where you're going to get the value, right? You kind of pick out a team and you say, hey, I think that of these teams, either Michigan and Arizona are even better. And we kind of have seen that by the KenPom ratings. Obviously, they've made the Final Four, and you can get a Yaxel Lenderberg or Braden Burries or somebody else at better odds. And now you have a chance to kind of hedge against that. The odds are pretty tough here with Lendenborg plus 230. Burries, I think, is about plus 300. All right, see there, a little better, plus 650. So ultimately, it's going to be kind of who you think is going to win the tournament. It's very unlikely it's going to come from a player on a team that doesn't win. So you're probably picking between Michigan and Arizona, and then you're probably going to want to pick someone a little further down and kind of hope that they have a good game. So I guess Koa Pete, I think I had seen him around 10-1. Yeah, 10-1 odds there. That's probably where I would look if you like, obviously, Arizona to win. It could be a potential kind of hedge, right? You could also do it. Hey, I think Michigan is going to advance, or I'm not sure. I already have a bet on Michigan, so I'm going to now take a longer shot on Arizona in case they win. So part of it depends on if you have any wagers kind of already in your pocket. If you're just going straight up from right now, I would probably avoid that market unless you really have a feel like, hey, I really like Illinois. And so therefore, I think Keaton Wagler, not only are they going to beat UConn, but also they're going to beat whoever comes out of that other game. And I think he's going to be the MOP.
Ben, you joined us a couple of weeks ago at the start of the tournament. You talked about how March Madness was the second busiest day in sports books behind just the Super Bowl. What percentage of that comes in the Final Four and National Championship alone?
That's a great question. I would say a decent amount, but more has probably already come. I would say maybe 20%. And that's just me throwing that out there, partially because there's so many of those games, right? And so I think that's what we see in college football and the NFL when you compare handles, as well as that the NFL on a per game basis is going to have a much handle, but college football has so many games that when you add them up, that's where you get that overall amount. And so the first couple of days when you have 16 games each day, and then obviously the going into the weekend, that's where you're going to get such a majority. There's still big sporting events, right? And you're not going against as many events too, right? You kind of have MLB on a daily basis and some NBA, but this is kind of the standalone games on Saturday night for the most part. So there will be a good handle, but I'd say for the most part, most of the action overall in the tournament has come in just because that's when you're going to get a lot more of the casuals betting on all those games.
You guys can follow him on social media at bfawkes22. Read him on Yahoo Sports. Always doing great work. Ben, enjoy the weekend of chaos. And yes, as soon as I land in Indiana for indoor football, I will place a bet on UConn. Thank you so much, Ben. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
Anytime.
I'm a degenerate. Ben. All right, coming up next, the weekend ahead of us will be previewed the way only this show can, with parts and farts.
What are some things about the Detroit Pistons that we on the outside might not know?
The culture, when I walked into this, the culture for me was pretty impressive. The way the players kind of come to bat for each other. And, Isaiah Stewart is not a guy off the court that is like an angry human being. In that Charlotte game, it was all he was saying in the locker room was like, I'm going to have you guys back. That's what I do. For me, it's impressive to see just how together everyone is and, the culture that they've continued to build.
I have Sadiq at the top like you. That's not the surprise. Sam Roush from Stanford, who had the big combine, unlike a lot of college tight ends that are productive, he actually, in my opinion, is playing the position like a pro right now. I love how he rumbles after the catch. I like Sam Roush quite a bit, Nate, because I just love that I could put him on the line of scrimmage, and I think he's tough as hell.
If you're a team that needs a left tackle, would you be concerned that this seemingly is a right tackle draft?
Concern, no, because you got to have a plan for it. And this is where your area scouts and the forecasting of what's coming out in the draft is important, and understanding that. I want to go back to CC Noah that you talked about. I think his overall stock is up for me because I'm feeling like now, if you have CC Noah on your team, now he gives you the ability to put your best five on the field, whether he's your right tackle or he's your guard.
See the snap.
Jerome to throw, and that's caught. Demond Street goes up and gets it, and it'll be 1st and goal for New Mexico.
Demond Street's having a day.
1st and goal. Johnson on the keeper, and he'll throw it up, and Jefferson's got it. Touchdown, New Mexico. How do you like that?
What time is it? It's can't wait time. You know the drill. This is where we look at some of the biggest action coming over the course of the weekend, and we decide if it's a Bart Scott, a Bart as it were. And when we tell you it's a Bart, you hear this incredible sound effect.
Can't wait.
And if it's not a Bart, it's clearly the opposite of that, which would be a fart. We're not interested, and you'll hear this. At which point we will both blame our dogs. All right, Bart or fart. Let's go
Never
through
gets
some of the
old.
action. Never does. We got a bunch of games to get over here. South Carolina, UConn. What do you think, Bart or fart?
Hear me out. It's a Bart. I mean, it's a Bart.
Can't
It's Don
wait.
Staley, Gino Auriemma. It's South Carolina, UConn. Yes, exactly, Bart. Like, it's a Bart. But we did get this matchup in the national championship game, and it was a blowout in the form of a UConn 30-point victory. And that was also after UConn absolutely destroyed South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina. So look, I know there's a revenge factor here. I know that South Carolina and Don Staley have been marinating on that national championship loss for the last 365 days. But if we get a mashup of the national championship last year, either way, I don't think UConn's getting blown out. If anyone's getting blown out, I do think it's South Carolina, although I wouldn't put my money on it. If we do get a replay of what we got last season in the Natty, that's a fart. I'm going to say Bart, but could be a fart.
No, your latter answer is right. This one's a fart. UConn's going to win by 30 again. All right. How about, I know. I'm a beacon of light in a dark, dark world. Texas, UCLA.
They didn't
Bart or
even
fart?
beat Notre Dame by 30.
Yeah, but they're going to have Thunder of the Gods on this one. Texas, UCLA, Bart or fart? What do you think?
Very much so a Bart.
Can't wait.
If you don't watch this one and you just see the final score, it'll probably be like 62-58. And you're like, my goodness, that was a fart. But I guarantee you it won't be. Texas wants to keep it low scoring, but Texas actually at times makes defense really fun. And we're going to see some of the best players in the country. Madison Booker, what she can do offensively. Lauren Betts, what she can do defensively. This one's a Bart for sure.
Yeah, this one's a Bart, especially the last 5
Can't
minutes.
wait.
This is a one-possession game to me. I'm all in on this being an
Down
epic
to the wire for
basketball
sure.
game. Let's go to the men's side. Illinois versus UConn. Is this a Bart or a fart?
This is a Hurley Bart.
Can't
I mean, fair to say UConn Duke was the Bartiest Bart that ever Barted of all time.
Yeah.
And the fact that we get UConn on the heels of that game, the fact that we get Dan Hurley in the Final Four, yes, 1,000%. Bart.
Yeah, I'm all in. This is a Bart. Anytime I can watch Hurley on the sidelines lose his mind. Shout out to our buddy, friend of the show, John Fanta, for the headbutt of Hurley, as they've now done, buying into the bit. All right, Michigan, Arizona, Bart or a fart on this one?
This is a tall guy Bart.
Can't wait.
Thank you. This is not just a regular old Bart. This is big man, tall guy, 240 pounds, 7'2", guys with one vowel and about 17 consonants in their last name. I guess you could say the same thing about Illinois as well. But yeah, this is a big man, tall guy Bart between two of the biggest teams in the country. I mean, it's a Final Four. Of course it's a Bart, but a very specific one. Fitzy?
I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend from all of the action in all sports. I think this is going to be an absolute fire matchup. I have no idea, y'all, who's going to win. This is an absolute part. This is everything you could want. And for anybody that's complained about anything through the course of this entire NCAA season or tournament, this game is that elixir. It absolutely sends chills down my spine thinking about what this game is from a size matchup, what this game is from a physicality matchup. I think the most important thing to watch are the refs. The refs in the first few minutes will give us an idea of how they're calling this game. If they are calling this game really clamped down, everybody's going to have to adjust very quickly because fouls will be a huge factor in this game. If the refs are letting them play, how far will they push it? These are two physical basketball teams with size that are not afraid to play hard at the rim. I love this game. I have no idea who's going to win it. It's the partiest of Barts. How about some NBA action?
Let them play.
Yeah, 100%. Refs, take the game off. Just don't show up.
Swallow the whistle.
Rockets Warriors Sunday night. Steph's return, part or fart? Rumored return.
This is a fart. I'm sorry. Like Steph or no Steph, the Warriors are farty. And I understand that Kevin Durant wears a Houston Rockets jersey, but this is like the least clutch team of all time. The Rockets can look at a double-digit lead and say, no, thank you. We're okay. We don't want this win. So these are just two teams that aren't overly inspiring to me. So sure, maybe a lot will be made of Steph's return. I don't even see the point of Steph returning at this point, to be honest with you. Just shut him down for the season. Let him go home. Let him go on vacation with his kids. The Warriors are playing unimportant basketball at this point. I'm sorry. It's a fart.
No, you're 1,000% right. This game's a fart. Look, sometimes great actors are in bad movies. And they're great players that are in movies that I just don't give a damn about. In the landscape, if we were making a hierarchy of what matters over the course of the weekend, you'd have to go way down the list before we get to anything. I know, Steph, and that's like what we love to talk about. I will remind you that Steph played a lot of basketball on the Warriors team this year that their own head coach told us is not built to be competitive for championships. So, who cares? Great, Steph comes back, and we watch him get mollywopped in the process. I'm out on this. Real quick, Spurs Nuggets Saturday afternoon, part or fart?
Definitely a part. Very, very Barty. You've got Wemby, you've got Jokic, you've got two MVP caliber players. SGA is the MVP, but Wemby and Jokic are playing like MVP players as well. So give me that matchup all day long. Give me a matchup in the West that matters in April. 1,000%. Give me all of it. I don't like that it's on a Saturday afternoon. This feels like a nighttime game. It's giving nighttime vibes, but even during a matinee, it's a Bart.
Yeah, I'm all in for this one. This one is the Bart that we need right now. I'm genuinely interested to see what the Nuggets look like with a little bit of pressure on them and all of this, because we are certainly ready, rightfully so, to anoint San Antonio and OKC as the cream of the crop. I just am curious to see best on best. The Nuggets would like to be part of this conversation, and I think in some ways the Nuggets deserve to be part of this conversation, but we got to see it, right? So I love just the concept. Anytime that we get Jokic in some form or fashion, taking a Wemby in some form or fashion, that's just going to hit different. One more. We'll get this one in for very selfish reasons because, frankly, it's the best thing on the calendar all weekend. We've got more Indoor Football League, IFL, on Yahoo Sports. Now, you see there Sunday night, shamelessly for me, I will be in Indiana, not at the Final Four, but I will be in Fishers, Indiana, for Arizona versus Fishers Freight. I'll be on the sidelines. Shout out to Brent Stover on the call on that one. We're working Sunday night indoor football, which you can check out every Sunday night on the Yahoo Sports Network. We also on Yahoo have Saturday night. The Indoor Wars are always on Saturday night. Caroline, you're also doing a game on Sunday, right? Where are you on Sunday?
Yes, I am. And also, by the way, get to the airport early. My goodness, Indy's going to be a zoo. But I'll be in Orlando for a 4 o'clock Eastern time game against the Quad City Steamwheelers. And this is Orlando's first home game, and Orlando has been without indoor football for a long time. The Orlando Predators have a really strong and rich history in that city. Orlando is an indoor football city, so finally they return. The Pirates have moved from Massachusetts down south, and I'm absolutely looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast.
Can't wait.
I am jealous you got the Orlando assignment before I can't wait to check out the environment there. And again, you can check these out. Like, you can get these wherever you get our show every single day. Obviously, also on YouTube. We're here with you all the time on this show and for the Yahoo Sports Network. And then if you can't remember any of that, you can just go to yahoosports.tv on any device, and you can watch the Indoor Football League with us over the course of the weekend. But fear not. That doesn't mean we won't be here Monday. We will be here with bells and whistles on Monday, getting you caught up on everything you need to know. It is going to be a wild weekend. So stick with Yahoo Sports for all of it. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. And one thing I can guarantee you is that Yahoo Sports Daily will be right back here Monday morning at 9 a.m. Have a great weekend. Come back, hang out with us on Monday.